StatShark helps you take a bigger bite out of daily fantasy games. Our daily fantasy tool has the best features built by Wall Street quants, from dynamic charting to probabilistic determination of player performance. Are you ready to become a StatShark?
Hello all you sharks out there, my name is Trip and I'm going to take you through some of the key features of StatShark and show you how to use them. I would like to say that this is going to be a very rough cut of this initial instructional video. I'm rushing to get it out to you guys, so please excuse the phone ringing and all sorts of other little pop-ups while I'm going through this, and we'll have this more polished and back out to you shortly. So real quickly before we get into StatShark itself, I wanted to talk about upcoming releases, and roughly November 15th we're looking at providing you the initial web and mobile access. You'll be able to eventually download an application in the iOS App Store as well as the Android Play Store. Around November 15th, we'll be introducing our NBA functionality. Yes, we're late in hitting the beginning of the season, but we thought it was more important to get to you web access, mobile access, etc. Then by March 15th, by the beginning of the Major League Baseball season, we will provide you all the baseball functionality. We also intend to have pure sports betting available at that time. And then by August 15th of 2020 or thereabouts, we will also provide full functionality for fantasy sports. So please stick with us. Lots of good stuff coming, and we think you will really like what we're going to be putting out there. Okay. So first things first, we need to get StatShark up and running, and there's a number of ways to do that. I'll show you two of them right now. One of the easiest ways is to go up to Cortana here and simply start typing stat. The application very possibly will come up at that point. If you have other statistical packages, it might not. So just continue to then type shark. As you can see, it's in the upper corner here. So you can simply click that to launch StatShark. The other way you can launch StatShark is to go up to your start menu here, and it will be under S. There we go. We're going to bring up StatShark right now. So StatShark is up and running right now. If at any time you forget your password, simply go through the I forgot my password process. You're going to simply put in your email at the top, your password at the bottom. If you're not currently registered to use StatShark, simply go to our website, statshark.com. You can register and you can start your free trial of the software. So at this time, I'm going to log in. It's going to go through a number of processes to update the database which resides on your computer so that you have continuous access. As we move down the road, this process will become much faster. For now, the database sits on your computer so that you do not need to be connected to the internet in order to use StatShark. So StatShark is up and running right now. You're initially greeted with a welcome window. This will continue to update over time so you can see what new features have been released, upcoming events, things along those lines. We can simply dismiss this. So now we're in the primary application itself, and of course you can move it around, you can size it, etc. And a lot of the functionality that is presented here is currently being developed to be both mobile and web accessible, including iOS. So that's going to be coming out in about 3 weeks from now. Today is currently Thursday, October 31st. So you have an idea as to when these features will be available on mobile and web access. So as we move through the application here, I'll take you through each of these menu items. At the moment, you see the majority of them are grayed out. But as we move to semi-auto, a number of additional options are available. And then when we go to expert mode, the remaining options are available. And you can see that the majority of DFS data points are available for review. A couple other notes with regards to our main screen here. What we also see here, though, is you can choose the sports that you want to work with. NBA is coming very soon. We have NFL, and Major League Baseball will be out by the time that season begins. You can choose which of the two primary clearinghouses you want to work with. Again, we have fully automated uploads to both of these clearinghouses, which you'll see in one of the upcoming sections. You can look at historical data as well. And what that allows you to do is set particular settings, such as your player filters, and experiment with the filters to see what is providing you the best results over time. I'll get into that a little bit more just down the road here. And additionally, you're able to choose which slates you want to perform analysis on. Before we do much of anything, I'm simply going to take you through full auto. Full auto is for individuals who don't necessarily want to take the time to learn expert mode. There is a connection between semi-auto mode and full auto mode. But in the event that you've had a long day at work, you've had family obligations, etc., you don't have a lot of time to get your lineups built, and you simply want to allow the application to do so, you can come in, we're on full auto mode, you click optimize, it's going to go through this process of examining the player universe and generating by default 20,000 lineups for you. Now, people ask us, why would I be interested in 20,000 lineups? I don't even play 150. And as you know, our competitors, our primary competitors, will provide you with 150 lineups. The issue with that is when I try and produce more combinations, I have a likelihood of producing a greater number of lineups that have a higher probability of winning. When we then come in and we filter our lineups based upon things that are of importance to us, such as aggregated DFS points, particular salary ranges for a lineup, and many other opportunities to filter here, such as, again, average ownership. We can adjust these numbers, we can apply, and that's going to pare back the lineups. Additionally, you can come in and you can sort on fields that are of primary importance to you. In doing so, what you are accomplishing is you're bubbling up to the top the lineups that you feel most comfortable with. So, as you can see here, when I sort on aggregate DFS points, I'm pulling the best to the top. And these are projected points right now. If you look at data historically, you will also have a field of actual DFS points that were scored by this lineup. So then you'll be able to look at how did your actuals compare to your projected performance. So naturally, when we talk about full auto, we're regularly asked, okay, full auto is great, but how do I know what's going on behind the scenes, and how can I customize full auto to meet my needs and my expectations? And that's when we come over to semi-auto here. Real quickly, the process of building lineups involves the following. That, okay. So first, what we want to do is filter players, and I'll take you through each one of these momentarily. We want to filter our players based upon the parameters and metrics that are important to you. We then want to cull the remaining universe based upon another metric that would be of importance to you. So when I'm talking about metrics, I'm talking about things like total ownership, points per salary, any number of things that you might be interested in. Time on the field, time on the court, number of snaps somebody's there for, how often they're targeted, things along those lines. Then what we want to do is we want to allow the optimizer to do its task. And again, there's a number of parameters that you can set here, as well as naming the metrics that you are particularly interested in. Once that is done, we have our lineups, and you want to filter and sort your lineups so that you pull the lineups that you think are going to be the best lineups for the evening to the top. Now, when you run full auto, it's going through each one of these processes for you, but you can customize these processes so that when you click full auto, it is using the settings that you prefer. So let's take a look at that real quickly. We're in semi-auto mode now. What we're going to first do is we're going to come in here and we're going to set filters for our players. And we can say, I want people within a particular salary range. Personally, I don't like that filter. But if you're getting down to the point where you don't have a lot of room left in salary, of course, you might want to come back and take a look at that. I like looking at rank in particular. So again, with rank, the smaller the number, the better. First place is better than 10th place. So we could go from 0.1, which would be our top ranked individuals out there. And we can say, I don't want anybody who's worse than the top 50% of my players. I can also go in and take a look at, we could look at opposition rank. How strong is the team that they're playing this evening? Projected fantasy points, projected ceiling and floor. I like that. Projected ceilings right now are up to 39, almost 40 points. And I can say I don't want anyone who has a projected ceiling, say, less than 10 points. And I'll add one more here. We'll do projected, let's do projected ownership. I want players who have ownership no lower than, say, 30%. I will apply that, and watch this bar here. It should increase in size, showing that we've decreased the size of this universe. Oh, actually the bar completely disappeared because we got ourselves down to this relatively small universe. So now you can see that we applied this to all of these positions. If you want to set particular filters for each position that override what you've written here, or in addition to what you've set here, you can also go into each position individually and add either the same or additional filters. If you choose the same filters, such as position rank, and you wanted to say you only want players in the top 60%, for quarterbacks specifically, that will override what you've placed here. So actually what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete this. Now, you have set the filters. You can play around with them. You can apply filters, tweak the filters a bit, reapply. You'll see the universe change every time you hit the apply button. Now, when we close the filters, you'll see that they have stayed the same when I reopen them. It is this setting of filters that will be used when you're in full auto mode and you click optimize. So you have the ability to customize your full auto process by coming into semi-auto and setting the filters. Now, the same is true in the semi-auto process if we click optimize. We can also set settings for the process of culling players. So what happens, again, if we go back to our presentation here, right? So we've now filtered players. We want to cull players. So out of this remaining universe, after we've filtered it, you can come in and set your settings for culling the remaining universe. And essentially what we do is we tell the application to select so many players within a particular salary range. So in this case, I want 4 quarterbacks who are costing between $8,000 and $8,600. Now we might not, oh, we got $8,600 here, $8,500. So what it will do is, based upon the metric you have set here, so usually people choose DFS points, this will pick the top 4 quarterbacks costing between $8,000 and $8,600. And when I say the best, I'm referring in this case to DFS points. We can also look at overperformance, which I'll explain later, points per salary, etc. In this case, it would pick 4 quarterbacks within this salary range, optimized on points per salary. So we go down the list. I'm asking again for 4 more quarterbacks between $7,000 and $1,999. And we go through each of the positions: running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, and defense. So now I've significantly culled the primary universe already through use of the filters. So I'm not sure how much we're going to get pulled back in this example. If it ends up being too few, I will just go back and change what I have set. So I'm going to auto cull now. Now, some of the other settings here, targeted salary. So I want my average salary across the players I've selected to be $7,300. Now realize that's average. Of course, you can't build a lineup with everyone being $7,300, but that's the targeted average. So you will have players below that and you'll have players above that. I'm also looking to get a total of 53 players. Because the universe is so small right now, I might not actually get a total of 53 players. This will override what you have set here. So if we've not generated enough players based upon the settings here, what the process will do is it will continue to go through the existing players using the same metrics to continue trying to get to a total of 53 players. So let's go ahead and cull now. Okay, so it has now, based upon these parameters and the remaining universe of players, created a player list that can now be optimized. Now, once the culling process has completed, we have the ability to remove individual players, remove a group of players that we don't like. Of course, you can delete all of these players and run a different optimization process or culling process. But additionally, if you feel that one of your players that you like most was left out, you can go in and you can grab that player and drag them in here, and it will rebuild the list and include that player. Additionally, we have what's called stacking. You've probably seen this in other competitive applications. What happens when you place a player in a stack? Let's take a look here. What will happen is they will appear in every single one of your lineups. So I do not suggest doing this unless you're going to produce multiple sets of lineups, because you do want diversification. If you throw someone into every one of your lineups and of course they have poor performance for the night or they become injured or whatnot, that's going to impact every one of your lineups. So word of caution against stacking players. You can have up to 4 players in a stack, but again, we recommend against it. And we will also have a number of videos that talk about diversification and portfolio management. And diversification not only pertains to players, but it also pertains to how many contests you enter, contest types that you enter, how many lineups you enter into each contest, and then also how you manage your account in terms of how much money are you anticipating risking out of that account as a percentage so that you can continue to play if you have a series of days in which you do not perform well. If we go back then to the process here, we've now filtered players, we have culled the remaining universe, and we are now going to optimize lineups. So let's take a look at that. The optimizer over here, you can set what you want the total lineup salaries to be. So, personally I like 55,000 to 60,000. This is set to currently 10,000 lineups being generated. I'm going to actually bump it all the way up to 30 because we will filter and sort down from there to choose the better lineups. And again, I can optimize, say, on ownership or any number of criteria here. And we can also run on the top 100 some probabilities to try to bring them to the top. I'm actually going to turn that off right now. And I'm going to build my lineups or run through the optimization process. So it's generating 30,000 lineups right now. So here are our lineups. And we have the ability to look at lineups we've generated historically, things along those lines. Right now, this is sorted by projected DFS points, bringing the best to the top. And again, we got 30,000 lineups, the worst being 56 points. And you might say, well, Trip 99 DFS points is not great. This is largely dependent upon how you set your parameters. So you can get much higher than this. If you don't like sorting on projected DFS points, you can come here and you can sort based on projected ceiling or projected floor. So you also see you have all of your players here, so you know what your lineups look like. And just as we did in player filters, right? And I'll go back to the scene here, the screen here. So we've now optimized our lineups, and we've been beginning to work on filtering and sorting. We did some sorting. I can go in and I can now build a series of filters that will apply to lineups. And the filters are somewhat different, right? So we have aggregate DFS points as opposed to individual player DFS points. Aggregate salary, so we can trim back, like let's say we had set it to $55,000, but I want to bump that up. We can apply, I want average ownership across the lineup to be no less than, say, 65%. And what else will we take here? Ceiling. I want no projected ceiling. So we actually have the ceilings above right now up to 110 points. I want projected ceilings that are no less than, let's say, 95 points. And anything else I want to add? Well, why don't we go with that? So I'm going to apply this. Boom. Take a look. Okay, so we only have 5,585 lineups remaining, even though we initially had 30,000. What we've done is we have pulled, we've removed lineups that we consider to be poor lineups based on our filtering. Now also, if you want to go through here and you're like, oh, well, I don't like him, or, I don't think this is a good lineup, you can simply and delete that lineup. Are you sure you want to delete lineup 9? Yes. You can also do a group of lineups. And at this point, let's assume that you have your lineups in the order that you want. You think the best ones are at the top. We can then go into the upload functionality. So this window is connected at this moment to FanDuel, but if you choose a clearinghouse here of DraftKings, this window will be connected to DraftKings. And basically, the first time you use the application, or if you go into settings, you can put in your user ID and your password for FanDuel and or DraftKings so that you can then have an automatic upload. Please realize we do not have access to your user ID and password, so if you're concerned about security, things along those lines, our application, StatShark, is password protected, and we do not have any visibility into your account information. The application does, but the staff here does not. At any rate, so we have the automatic upload options here. You have the descriptions of the contest. You have the total prizes, and again, you can sort by these types of parameters, how many positions are left, so on and so forth. And you can also see the max entries here. So right now I could enter 150 lineups into this contest, which has a $9 fee. Also, and I've blurred it out here, but it shows you your account information as well as your balance. You have the ability to click here and add funds. It will take you to the website. And so what I'm going to do is, for demonstration purposes, I'll choose something that has a relatively inexpensive price, like 25 cents here. But I want something that has a prize. So I'm going to take this contest. It's a 25-cent entry fee. I can enter up to 150. Sorry, lost my place there. And I'm going to say, I just want to do the top 10 of my lineups, because again, my lineups are sorted and filtered the way I want them to be. So I'm going to add my top 10 lineups to this contest, and I'm simply going to click upload. Okay, so I've successfully entered 10 lineups into the $60,000 Sunday NFL Hail Mary contest. And if you log into your account, you will see that that you have in fact uploaded those 10 lineups, and then of course you can manipulate the lineups at FanDuel as well. That is semi-auto. And again, right now, if I pull up my settings here, everything is set the way I left it. I want 30,000 lineups based on DFS points. This is how I want to call. Again, I want to call based on DFS points. If you go back now to full auto and you hit optimize, those screens will not pop up, but those settings will be what's used in the full auto mode. You will then be provided the opportunity to, at the tail end, choose your contest and execute lineups. You can also still do additional sorting and additional filtering as you wish. Okay, so let's go and take a look at expert mode. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the filters that we applied here so we can really look at some of the functionality without that being part of what we've done here. So I'm just going to reset. You can see all of our players came back, removed our filters. So now what I want to take a look at here is, well, expert mode, but we're going to take a closer look at the screen here, look at some of the functionality. As you've seen, of course, we can sort by various individual names, etc. What would perhaps be of most interest is, for example, projected points, where we're pulling the individual with the highest number of points to the top. I also like looking at position rank. Remember, position rank is sorted in essence backwards. The smaller the number, the better. First place is better than 10th place, right? So this is a percentage ranking in essence. So Russell Wilson is in the top 1% along with Patrick Mahomes in terms of quarterbacks. Also with football, we tend to break down players by position because of the large number of discrepancies in terms of how they're awarded DFS points. In basketball, of course, it's very different, so we tend to look at the entire universe simultaneously, and then we're simply able to sort by position. So what I want to look at first here would be sorting by projected points. We're going to take a look at the top 10 here. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and use the arrow down key to get a specific number of players. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to look at the probabilities. So what this is going to give me is the probability of each of these players scoring in the top position, the top 25%, top 50%, and top 75% of this particular universe that I've selected. So when we pull this up, we can see here's our players in essence in the order or the reverse order that we had selected them. And we're going to sort by the top 25%. So Patrick Mahomes has a 33% chance of being in the top 25% of these players. Aaron Rodgers is right behind him. So, and we can then also sort, and it's not necessarily going to be the exact same order. It's not, in terms of who has the largest probability of being in the top 50% and then also the top 75%. So we can also look at probabilities, for example, in terms of points per salary. So it's now changed. And in terms of points per salary, right, we have Carson Wentz. And again, we can go and sort by these different metrics here. So before I hop over to charting, because I'm sure most of you like to have this information, I would like to show to you what it looks like in a chart. But before I hop over to that real quickly, I just wanted to explain these two columns. This column here is the list of players currently within this bucket. So don't get confused with this list and the sorting of player names up here based upon how you sorted here. What this bucket of players provides you is the ability to remove a player. So we then rerun the simulations, and now we're only looking at each individual's projected performance within this smaller universe. Also, and again, I'll go to charting real quickly, but within this research window, we also have the ability to do a side-by-side comparison of these individuals. So just another way to look at the data. So each individual is listed this way. If you want to see, what their ranking is compared to one another, things along those lines, it's an easier view to work on. Additionally, let's say you want to look at Derek Carr right up against Aaron Rodgers. You can place them right next to one another, so you can look side by side. Additionally, and this will take a moment to run, but here is one of the features which we provide that is very difficult to obtain with any of our competitors. So what we have now is players' performance over time, and it starts sorted by date, most recent date up top. And again, you can look at how they've performed over time. You might want to look at projected points and sort by projected points. When were they performing best? What this allows you to do also, if you're interested, say, in this example, you want to know how Philip Rivers does, particularly when he's away, this will provide you insight. And then, of course, we can look at how he's performing at home. And then again, you can sort specifically by date. How had he performed in 2016 as opposed to 2019? And we have that for each of the players that have been selected. So again, this is not available at all with regards to any of our competitors. One of the other things I like to look at is how has this player performed against particular teams. So now I can go down and look at Atlanta and go through each of the teams so that I have an understanding for the next upcoming game, what type of performance I would expect based upon what we see here. So, okay, again, going now to charting, and what I particularly like is charting of probabilities. However, real quickly, before we jump into charting, I just want to point out that we initially jumped into that research window by clicking probabilities. However, each of the other items that we looked at, such as player history, can be accessed externally. So we have probabilities, player history, and compare players within the research bucket. Again, you can access each one of those through the side menu here or within the research window itself. So now let's go to charting real quickly. This is the charting window. As you saw in the research window, we have each of the players that we're going to examine here. Again, you can delete from here. You can also click and drag additional players to here if you want to include them in your observations. So the big one that I really like is probabilities. And what this is showing you based on this metric here, so in this case, DFS points or projected DFS points, actual DFS points. What we're looking at is each individual's probability of being within a performance group. So the red is the top 25% out of this universe. Again, not all players. And in this case, not all quarterbacks. Top 50% of this universe and top 75% of this universe. So if I want to grab a couple people who will absolutely have the highest likelihood of top performance, in other words, being in the top 25%, in this case, I would pick Patrick Mahomes as having the highest probability of being in the top 25%, and Aaron Rodgers. So this was, again, top 75%. If I'm going down the list and I want somebody who has a high probability in being the top 75%, that would be Carson Wentz. We can look at who has the highest probability of being in the top percent on a points per salary basis, on an ownership basis. Now let's go to box plots. What box plots shows you is the volatility of a given player, including the upside and the downside. So salary is over on the right here. The history of DFS points, the moving median of DFS points, is on the left-hand side. And as the median increases, and we can measure the distance from the median to the salary. And the closer this distance, the less you are paying for the projected median points. So if we want to look at, for example, let's take a look here. Who is this? Philip Rivers, right? There's a big gap between his salary and his median points over the last 10 games. You can see within this chart that you would not expect to get a great points per salary performance. Now, over here, we get to number 10, Aaron Rodgers. His median is the highest of all of these players, and the distance between his salary line and his median are relatively close. So top performer, higher median, smaller salary gap, or smaller, a better points per salary measurement. And as you can see, Aaron Rodgers is $7,700 with expected points somewhere, or median performance somewhere around 12. And then when we look at Phillip Rivers, same cost, but median performance in the neighborhood of 8 DFS points per game. Okay, so we also have historical performance. Well, and again, real quickly, we can look at points per salary here. We can look at the number of snaps they're on the field for. So again, in this case, if you're paying for a player, you want them to be on the field a lot because then that's a greater opportunity for them to score DFS points. Points per snap. Okay, so a lot of information here. Time series. What this provides us is a performance over time, and we can change the count here so that it's a little more visible as to where we are near term. I'm just going to change this, say, to the last 10 games. Okay, we can see who's performing where, and also whether or not they're in an uptrend or a downtrend. So currently, if we look at the darker green line, that's James Winston, his performance is currently in decline. The question then is, will that continue for a second and third game? So now, one thing I recommend is when you're looking at player performance historically, it's much easier to read this chart when we go to a lesser number of players. So I'm going to remove those. I'll go back to 30 games of performance. And now there's a fair amount more visibility. In fact, I'll take out one more player. And then we can add the transparencies back in there, and we really have a good understanding of how one player is performing compared to another. Again, you can look at DFS points. You can look at points per salary. You can look at number of snaps they've played, and so on. Another item that I like to look at, and I'm going to repopulate, actually what I'm going to do is I'll leave this up, and I'm going to create a new chart. So I get all these guys back in there again. So I'm going to go to charting, and make it a little bit bigger here. And I'm going to go to stacked histograms. Now, again, a lot of information available in this chart. And I'm going to hide the side menus so that we can see the entire chart a little bit better. There are two ways to present this information. This shows you total DFS points that they've acquired over the last 10 games, but you can also show it as a percentage, and it provides truly two different sets of information. So let's go back here first to the total points scored. And very quickly you can see that Patrick Mahomes has scored the greatest number of points. But what we're interested in not only is his total number of points, but how those points were established. So for example, dark green is going to be passing touchdowns. The purple is going to be passing yards, right? Blue is going to be rushing yards, and then the light green is going to be rushing touchdowns. If you're interested in somebody who scores a lot of points, particularly in, what we'll take a look at here is rushing yards, because what you can see is Phillip Rivers over the last 10 games has scored relatively little DFS points, in terms of rushing yards. If we go to a percentage, this shows you more clearly what percentage of points each player's total DFS points comes from a particular activity. So, for example, Derek Carr does not score a lot of points from passing touchdowns, but he does score a lot of points from passing yards. That is very important information, and it can be important predominantly based upon the type of defense that Derek Carr is playing, because if they tend to shut down, if that defense tends to shut down passing touchdowns, then you want somebody who's going to score a fair number of points elsewhere, rather than them trying to get into the end zone via a pass. Inversely, what you would want to look at is if you want somebody, obviously, who scores a lot of points passing the ball, resulting in touchdowns, well, then you're going to look at Carson Wentz. Again, we can adjust the game count, so you're interested in just, you get a bit of a shift, right? And you can see the total number of points that have been accomplished. Again, they decline in general, but it gives you a good perspective of how you would expect them to perform. If you're really interested, we can go down to 5 points. And again, these numbers here are median per game. So in this case, Carson Wentz on average, or his median performance is nearing 20 DFS points. Let's go and take a look at another chart type. What overperformance shows us, and I love this chart, is what we expect someone to do in terms of exceeding expectation. You can see in this case, we're looking at Carson Wentz, the overall performance that he provides is above what you would expect. And what does that mean? Well, what we do to calculate this is we take the median performance across all players in the same position. We bump it up a hair by 20% because that would truly be overperformance. And then we look, how often does that player overperform that calculation, and how often do they underperform that calculation? And we want to look then at how much area is presented here as opposed to how much area is presented there. And we can look at this again in terms of multiple measures. So now in terms of points per salary, Carson Wentz does not perform well. So you pay probably too much for what you're getting for Carson Wentz. We can go also points per snap, right? He's about even. He underperforms a little bit more than he overperforms. And let's take a look at ownership. In terms of ownership, he's chosen quite a bit. So we have no underperformance. Lots of people choose Carson Wentz. And right now, we are not able to change based upon selecting these individuals. That is a fix that is coming in the very near future. Additionally, with regards to Carson Wentz, we're going to look at the distribution of his performance. Now, what we see down here is, first of all, the number of games you're looking at, and then we have what's called a bin count. So right now it's set to 15. That means there's 15 buckets down here. So let me explain what we're looking at. What you want to look at is where is the meat of this individual's performance. And in this case, Carson Wentz's primary performance is between 19 and 20 and a half points. This is usually where he performs. Now, we've had an outlier. We've had 3 events where he's performed between 22 and 23 points. We also have another outlier on this end, 3 instances of him performing between roughly 12 and 13 points. Now, if I increase this bucket count, or decrease it, we often get a different perspective. So let me bump, again, you more clearly see where the meat of the performance is, and you have greater resolution into what would be expected. We can go down to 10 bucks, and here this is even more helpful, right? So in general, you're going to expect Carson Wentz to perform between roughly 16 points and 23 points when he's out on the field. Again, you can look at points per salary, for example. Obviously, the meat of his performance here is between 2.6 and 3 points per salary when he hits the field. Points per snap, not quite as clear. Let's see. Okay, it's a little more clear now. So again, points per snap, you're going to look at between 1/3 of a point and not a lot of discrepancy here, up to a little bit more. So 0.3 DFS points to 0.35 DFS points per snap. So that can add up to be quite a bit based upon the number of snaps he plays. Let's take a look at that. Number of snaps, he's usually performing between 63 and 66 snaps per game. So, and then just out of curiosity, ownership, we have quite a bit of outliers here. In fact, if we added these up, I'm not sure, and they probably would not exceed this, but typically his performance is between 82% ownership and 87% ownership. Let's change the bucket count again. Let's take a look at 50. Again, that provides a little more information. The meat of his performance is right in this area. Again, if we're looking at just the last 10 games, okay, it's not that meaningful, but we do have 5 instances of Carson Wentz performing in the area of 95, 96% ownership, where here we're dropping down. We have an instance of 85% ownership, 87% ownership. That is distribution. Okay, that's perhaps even a more clear projection of what we're seeing. Let's take it back. Okay, I think that's where we started. So 20 instances of 80 to 96% ownership. So I'm finishing charting here. I want to talk now about how we arrange the desktop, because obviously we like to look at data side by side so that we can come to a more complete understanding of player performance. So here, if we look at median performance, we want to be able to arrange our information so that we can get a good overview. And you know what, I'm going to change this chart back so that I can look at, let's see here, statistograms. You know what, that's only 4 of the players. I'm going to go back here, pull up another chart, go to statistograms as well. So right now I can look at performance by task or attribute. In other words, how do people score points when they're on the field for what type of events that occur. I can also look at how they are performing compared to their salary, who has the higher median, who has the greater variability in performance. And going back to this chart for a moment, what we see here is that Aaron Rodgers has a fair amount of variability. So now you can take a look at what his upside is. So projected ceiling, the median projected ceiling is going to be around 35. His floor is going to be around 2. Again, you start looking at other people with similar salaries, right? So $7,700, $7,700. The downside here for Phillip Rivers is actually going to be about -4 DFS points, which would be accumulated through fumbles and things along those lines. So now we can also pull up some statistical information here, such as probabilities of these people. We'll set that over here. And I'm interested, let's say specifically in DFS, 25% performance. So I'm going to move that over to the left. Okay, so we have that information here. We have our primary data here. And again, you can create as many windows as you like. You can fill your screen with it, and you can get an overall understanding as to performance by individual. So real quickly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an individual chart now on Russell Wilson's performance, and I'm going to look at overperformance of DFS points compared to Patrick Mahomes. We're going to go over performance of DFS points here, and you can see they're actually quite similar. So let's take a look real quickly, a side-by-side comparison of how many snaps these individuals play, because the number of snaps, of course, is a greater opportunity to score DFS points. And we see a significant difference between Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson. So again, if we're particularly interested in these individuals, let's throw these charts down. Let's see, where are we going to put these guys? We'll put one up here. I'll shrink that down a little bit. Shrink that down. Sorry about that. So now we have a side-by-side comparison of these two individuals. We can also then look at the volatility of their performance, their expected DFS point performance, also compared to their salary. We can look at how they perform as a percentage or as total points, median total points. This provides us a great opportunity to look at information side by side on individual players as well as a group of players, so that we can make a selection as to what quarterbacks we would like to include in our optimization bucket. I want to cover back testing real quickly. It's a feature which you can see here, but we have not finalized the production of this. It does exist in our initial prototype. The logic has been written. We simply need to port it to this enterprise-based language. And what back testing will provide you the opportunity to do is create filters, create optimization parameters, and also set filters for optimization of lineups and save them under a particular name. And then when you want to back test, you can select your various filters, your various settings, and you can say, I want this player filter to be applied. I want this culling settings to be applied, my optimization settings, a particular set of optimization settings, and lineup filters. And I want to combine those four things, and I want to test them over the last 3 months of data, the last year of data, whatever you want to see results on. It will go through and create optimizations for each one of those, and then it will tell you, it will give you a full report for each one of the dates. It will tell you what your median score was across all of your lineups. It will also store all the lineups that were created. It will tell you, based on that optimization, what your worst score was. If we run, say, 10,000 lineups, what was the worst score in that 10,000 lineups? What was the best score in that 10,000 lineups? What was the best score that bubbled up to your top 150 lineups, your top 50 lineups, and your top 10 lineups, as well as median performance and things along those lines in each one of those buckets, the 150, 50, 10. And then it will give you a total summation of that performance. So now you have visibility into, if I use this player filter and these culling settings and these optimization settings and this other lineup filter, what I can expect to happen. Now you can start mixing and matching them to see, well, when I use this combination of filters and settings, I get a higher end result over the course of that 3-month testing period or that 1-year testing period. So that is also going to be delivered very soon. So a few last words with regards to StatShark. First of all, I believe you see that we provide functionality, dynamic and functionality that allows you to visualize data and to do dynamic analysis on the fly. And these are functions that none of our competitors provide. Additionally, the automated upload. So we provide a 2-click upload as opposed to a 13-step process. What I want to impress upon you is the need to keep your version of the application up to date, because we are constantly rolling out improvements and additional capability and additional functionality on a weekly basis at this time. The application as you see it today is very different than the application when we rolled it out roughly 6 weeks ago. So please keep up to date. Every time you see that there's a new version available, please grab it. We're making it faster, we're making it stronger, better, additional functionality and capabilities, and we continue to grow beyond what our competitors have. Furthermore, in the very near future, and again, today's date is Thursday, the end of October. Within the next 3 weeks, we're going to have light versions of StatShark available via the web, mobile, iOS packages, Mac, iPhone, etc. It'll be available in the various Play stores. So please take a look at that. We'll let you know when that's available. Additionally, as we move down the line here, we'll be rolling out NBA and Major League Baseball, but we will also be rolling out fantasy sports and then sports betting as a whole. There's also additional functionality that will be released within the next 2 or 3 days. That is a sports betting package that shows you over, under, and spread opportunities that have the higher likelihood or the higher probability of performing in your benefit. We are also offering a great starter package right now. If you sign up, you will get all of StatShark till the end of football season for $19.95. You'll get a really cool t-shirt, and you will, free of charge, and you will also get free access to this sports betting package, which goes by the name of Parlay Buddies. So stay tuned, please sign up, please support us. This application is continuing to grow, continuing to get better, and there's no competitor in the marketplace that provides this level of functionality. Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. We really appreciate your patronage, and please stick with us. We're working hard here for you. Okay, have a great day.